Hi guys, Pam here from StackSocial this morning, here to talk to you guys about some cool products. And today, in the spirit of kind of what we did last week with, we talked about iOS 10 and our iOS 10 developer course, I thought it'd be fun to talk about something that I'm sure you've seen around the StackSocial world a lot. We sell a lot of them and we talk a lot about them. VPNs. VPNs are fairly popular these days. A lot of people, and so with that in mind, I thought it would be interesting to just talk about what VPNs are, exactly why people use them, what makes them so interesting, and discuss that a little bit so that if you're not somebody who knows what a VPN is or why you might want one, you will know by the end of this live video. So. First, let's start off with the basics. VPN, what does that even stand for? VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And what that means is, well, first let's take a step back and talk a little bit about your internet connection. So when you connect to the internet from your computer, from your home Wi-Fi or work Wi-Fi, or from a hotspot, or anytime that you're connected to the internet, your connection has a unique identifier, which is like an IP address. And an IP address is like a virtual home address for your connection. And what this means is, if you do anything online, if you visit a website, if you buy something, if any of your actions that you take online are tied back to that IP address. So it gives you some level of anonymity in terms of, I'm here at the StackSocial office where, we have, a couple dozen employees. So my IP address maybe isn't tied directly back to me, Pam, but it's tied back to this office and our Wi-Fi here. So kind of keeping that in mind, and of course that's a bit of an abstract concept, but keeping that in mind, your IP address is something that's really important. It's basically what identifies you across the web in a lot of ways. And so, but it also can hinder a lot of activities online because of your IP address, because an IP address is also, it records where you are. So my IP address here records that I am in Los Angeles, California. So it knows that I'm not, across the country, and it's more specific than just the country that you're in. It really can be as granular as the city. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about how a VPN helps your online browsing. So let's say, for example, you are at a coffee shop, you're at a Starbucks, and you're doing work on the Wi-Fi there. You're basically trusting that their Wi-Fi connection is secure, that people aren't prowling on that network to try and hack you and try and figure out important information about you, like your credit card, your bank account, all those sorts of things. So you're essentially trusting that this public Wi-Fi network is secure. Well, a VPN can help you make it more secure. So how does it do that? So a VPN essentially, it gives you a different IP address. So rather than you, going out and browsing on the web with, let's say, your home Wi-Fi IP address, that, obviously it's as secure as you probably can make it, but you want to make sure that, your neighbors aren't trying to, get into your Wi-Fi network, or that, if, for example, your Wi-Fi network is not password protected, which it always should be, that people aren't trying to hack in, then what you can do is use a VPN and essentially mask where you are. That way, it just makes all of your browsing a little bit more secure. Obviously, a VPN is not the end-all, be-all of online browsing security, but it is an extra layer that helps. So a lot of VPNs claim make online browsing totally anonymous and totally safe. Obviously reality is a little bit different, and you can always be a bit at risk. So a VPN just helps you be less at risk of something happening while you're browsing online. And it's also a great way to download anything safely. So essentially, let's go back to what exactly it does. Like I said, it masks your IP address. So I could be sitting here at StackSocial in the StackSocial HQ my computer, and I'm browsing online, or the VPN will say I'm actually browsing from Switzerland, or I'm actually browsing from not Los Angeles, from New York City. So it masks the IP address so that it's a little bit harder for people to detect what you're doing and where you are. So browsing security is huge. That's probably one of the main reasons why a VPN is really important, but there's also a lot of other really practical reasons why a VPN is important. And the second one is downloading. And we live in a world where Napster existed, and I'm sure if you're somebody like me who grew up in the 90s, then you maybe remember Kazaa, which was another awesome downloading website. And nowadays there's torrenting websites all over. It's always in the news that like Pirate Bay has been taken down however many times, and all these torrenting sites exist, and every time one gets shut down, another one pops up. And torrenting is, the actual act of torrenting is legal. The act of torrenting copyrighted material is illegal. And a lot of people do it. Obviously, if you're tech savvy at all, you can download a lot of stuff from the internet, software, movies, shows, whatever you can imagine, you can pretty much torrent. But there's obviously repercussions to that. You need to be torrenting things that are legal, and if you are not, then you are at risk of being caught in an illegal act. At least in the US and in a lot of countries, downloading copyrighted material is illegal and punishable by law. But VPNs, and of course I am not condoning downloading copyrighted material, but a use case is that downloading can be really risky, and so how do you mitigate that risk? Through a VPN. So a lot of people who are really avid torrenters, what they'll do is they'll find VPNs that have IP addresses and servers in, let's say, Switzerland, where downloading copyrighted material is essentially legal, and then you're in a sense protected because it looks like you're downloading something from a country where downloading copyrighted material is legal. And of course it also just helps you mitigate some of the risk of downloading. Downloading opens you up to a lot of different dangers, and you want to make sure that you're doing it as safely as possible. So VPNs are also another really good way of making sure that you're staying safe, your browsing activity is safe, and that you're making sure that you aren't opening yourself up to any sort of attacks. So downloading is a huge use case. Even if it's just because you want to mask your IP, you don't want people knowing what you're downloading, you don't want prying eyes, making sure that you're anonymous essentially around the web is a huge reason why VPNs are so important. And then also there's another major reason why VPNs are really awesome, and that's geo-restrictions. As you guys know, probably because we have StackSocial fans across the world, there's geo-restrictions in a lot of different countries. For example, if I was in Europe right now and was on a European connection and I wanted to log on to, let's say, Hulu or HBO Go or some sort of streaming service, then I would only get the shows or the content available for that country because my IP address says that you're in Austria, so we're only going to give you shows available in Austria that we're marketing to that country or that are available in that country. But what if I want to watch, American shows that I love to watch that I know I could watch if I was in the US, then I wouldn't be able to do that without a VPN. If you have a VPN, like I said, you can choose the location on a lot of these VPN services, and I can say, I want my IP to say I'm coming from LA, or Portland, Oregon, or Dallas, Texas, or whatever, and you can, and essentially that tricks the online service into thinking that you're somewhere else and giving you the content for that location. So, obviously there are a lot of services that are trying to dissuade people from doing that. Netflix being one of them. They vowed, I believe at the beginning of this year, maybe even last year, that they they were trying to do everything that they could to stop people from being able to use VPNs to get content from outside of the country that they're in. And so a lot of these VPN services that used to work for Netflix, they don't work anymore. But a lot of them actually do. And because it is a fairly technical thing to try and block a VPN, but a lot of these services, if you just give it a shot, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Netflix is getting obviously better at trying to block these types of loopholes, but it is still touch and go. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for a lot of these other services and a lot of websites that you're probably being geo-restricted on outside of that, you can probably still use a VPN and kind of get around that. So geo-restrictions are huge. If you're somebody who's in another country and you want US content, it's one of the only ways to get it. So a VPN is really, really helpful, especially if you're traveling. If I have a couple of friends who have traveled to Europe for a couple of months, and they want to keep up on shows, they want to keep up on news here, whatever it is that's going on in the web in the when you're abroad. And of course, there's a ton of other use cases. Literally, just the other day, I was talking to somebody about VPNs, and they were like, somebody I know, a nephew who's in high school was asking to get a VPN. And I thought that was so weird, that why would somebody in high school need a VPN? And then I realized that nowadays a lot of high schools actually block content. So they block Facebook on the high school or school Wi-Fi, so that you can't get to any of these distracting websites like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, Instagram, and so they'll block those websites so you can't even get to them unless you have a VPN. If you have a VPN on your phone, you can then get whatever content you want without any of those restrictions. So that was a really funny and kind of interesting use case, but that exists in a lot of places. So another reason why VPNs are super important. So yeah, that's kind of all of the major reasons why we see, at least, why customers buy VPNs. Now let's talk a little bit about you're sold, you want to buy a VPN, and you think it's something that you really want. What should you be looking for? And there's a lot of VPNs out there. So kind of getting educated on what the pros and cons are really important. For example, one really important thing that I think everybody should be looking at when they're assessing what VPN to purchase is what virtual locations are actually available. That's really important because some VPNs will only give you, let's say, 10 different countries to choose from. Maybe those countries aren't the ones that you want. Maybe if you're somebody outside of the U.S., you want to make sure that they have a location available for you to VPN from the U.S. So that's going to be a deal breaker if they have it or they don't. Maybe you want the flexibility of being able to have multiple different locations, and you don't care where they are, you just want several. Obviously you're going to want to look for a VPN that has a lot. Sometimes if you're looking to, for whatever your specific use case is, you want to make sure that you have a location to match that. Like I said, if you're somebody looking for US and you're outside of the US, you want to make sure that it has US. If you're somebody from the US and you want to make sure it has something abroad, just make sure that you're getting what you need and that you're checking that out. And then another thing is just device and operating system support. This one's really huge because VPNs can work on a smartphone. So if you're somebody who uses a smartphone a lot versus a desktop, you want to make sure that whatever VPN you have has the functionality for whatever device you're on. And you want to make sure that you're getting as specific as possible, because there are VPNs that work on an iPhone 5 and 6 and now 7, but maybe don't work on a 4, or if you still have a 4, or there's ones that only work for specific operating systems on Android, so you have to make sure that you're updated and all that sorts of stuff. So you want to make sure that whatever devices you're going to be using, you're covered. Also making sure that you can use it across multiple devices if that's what you're looking for. If you're somebody who's on an iPad a lot and you're on desktop a lot and you're on your phone a lot, you want to make sure that you can get something that works across multiple different devices, because if not, then you'll only be able to get a VPN on your desktop and not on your other devices. So make sure that when you're looking, that you make sure that it's iOS or Android compatible, that it's Windows, Mac, whatever you're working on, PC. Make sure that it's compatible with the devices that you're most on. And then of course price. Price is super important. Anytime you buy something, you want to make sure that it's a good value. Luckily, if you head to the link in the description, that's our VPN and cybersecurity page, and that has all of our VPNs on it. And obviously, you want to make sure price is something that's going to be reasonable for you. If you're looking for the coolest, sickest, best VPN, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But luckily, a lot of these VPNs that we offer are lifetime, and that means that exactly what that means, that you have to buy it once and it works for life, or it'll work at least for the next 5-10 years. And honestly, in the next 5 or 10 years, VPNs may even be obsolete. We don't know, but they'll work for the foreseeable future. And I think that's really important. If you're somebody who you are intrigued by the idea of a VPN and you kind of want to try it out, but don't necessarily want to make a really big commitment to a service, then you can buy a 1-year, buy a 3-year, and it's obviously going to be a little bit more cost effective. But we do have VPNs on the site that are lifetime subscriptions for as low as $30, which is a pretty low price to pay to try something out. And it's also a great price to pay if you know what you want and you just want a VPN and you just want to make sure that you're getting a good value. Then $30 is not too bad, but they will go up as high as $79, $99. But that again just depends on the features that you're looking for. And of course, speed. Speed is really important, because a VPN does slow down your connection depending on what VPN you're using. Because if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. You're on a device that has a particular IP address, so every single thing that you're doing online has to get rerouted from your IP to another IP address, and then has to obviously all come back to what you're doing online. So having a VPN sometimes does slow down your connection, but make sure that whatever VPN you're on, that you read all the features, read the description, read some reviews, and make sure that you're buying something that is going to work for what you want. If speed isn't that important to you and you kind of just want to try it out, maybe you're not going to use it all 100% of the time that you're browsing. You're just going to use it for a couple different use cases. Speed might not be a deal breaker, but just make sure that you take a look, because a lot of times people buy VPNs and they don't realize that speed and slowing down your connection is a bit of a side effect of having one. So I would say that those are the 4 main things to look for when you're buying a VPN: is virtual location, device and operating system support, price, and speed. Those are the 4 main ones. And of course, maybe you don't need all of them. Maybe you just need a couple, but just being educated on what you're getting is really important. So yeah, I think we covered all of the basics, why you need a VPN and what to look for. I think this is a really interesting topic because we sell a lot of VPNs and they've gotten really popular over the last year. And a lot of people just don't know what they are. They just need a little bit more knowledge. It's one of those things where you don't realize you need it until you understand what it is. And then you're like, wow, I could really use that. So it's a really cool thing to have. I have VPNs on my computer, and I'm not a power user. I don't use them 24 hours a day every time I'm browsing, but they do come in handy, and they are really useful a lot of the time, especially for downloading, especially for unlocking geo-restricted content, and just making sure that you're safe online. The internet can be a really treacherous place, and making sure that you're trying your best to stay safe, stay anonymous, make sure that no one's metaphorically looking over your shoulder is always really important. So yeah, and head over to that link. It has all of our VPN and cybersecurity deals on there. You might even find something outside of a VPN that's interesting. And happy browsing. And we'll be back next week to talk a little bit more about another awesome product. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. you.